Welcome, Wastelanders, to another video. As you saw from the title, and you can see from the workshop menu, that this is a tutorial video. This is for beginners, intermediates, and experts. We're going to touch on everything from picking a settlement, getting started with the build, and work our way into more expert things like setting up custom lighting and so on and so forth. I'm not going to talk about every single mod that I have going at the moment. If you want to know more about all the different mods, you can check out my first tutorial video, which I'll have linked below. In that video, I talk about all the different ones that I use, and I give basic descriptions on them, as well as showcase one or two of them. In this one, I'm just going to talk about the ones that I actually use as I'm using them, and I'm only going to mention a few specific ones right now, just because they're new compared to the last video. The biggest one right now is Commonwealth Geck. Commonwealth Geck allows you to go outside the borders. As you can see, I'm now outside the border, and I can scrap all this stuff. I can build out here. I can do whatever I want. With Commonwealth Geck, you can basically make your settlement as large as you want. You can walk out in any direction and just keep building. Do be careful with that. There is, build limits, size limits, whatever you want to call them, for your settlements for a reason. The game can become unstable. So if you want to continue to build and make them super, super large, one idea that was given to me by one of my viewers is that once you've reached what you feel like might be the limit, use another mod that allows you to make your own settlements. In this case, I'm using Workshop or Workbench Anywhere. That one allows you to put a workbench wherever the heck you want and make your own settlements. As you've seen from my other videos, I do that on occasion. And that's a good way to sort of expand your settlement. With the Workshop Workbench Anywhere settlement mod, you cannot put settlers there. You cannot assign any settlers, so that is one downfall of that. But you can use something like a USO, which is up here, USO integrated. You can actually create your own NPCs, and you can put animals, children, you can put guards and vendors, so on and so forth, but they're not going to react the same way as like a regular NPC will. So, with that little bit of lengthy introduction there and a self-spawning Brahmin, we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, so for beginning a settlement, the first thing I do is I scout out my locations. Obviously, you have all of the vanilla settlement locations that come in the game. And of course, if you're using something like the Workshop Workbench Anywhere, you can make one wherever you want. So that's the first thing I do, is I scout out locations, and I look for something unique about the location that kind of inspires me. In this place, I'm not really getting a whole bunch of inspiration, but I'm just here to use this because it's got a nice big wide open area that's going to make it useful for building stuff and for teaching you guys how to do things. But that's usually one of the first things I do, is I look around and try to find a location that has some sort of unique feature that I like, that I can emphasize and make stand out or use to do something kind of big and creative with. This particular location is just kind of open and barren, so there's not a whole heck of a lot that I find super inspiring about it. There's a little something that you can get rid of. Next step after when you pick a location is to clean it. That's like the next biggest thing. That's the first thing I do before I even start building anything, is I just go around and I scrap everything. I'm using 3 different mods for that. We have Scrap That Settlement, Scrap All the Things, and the last one is Scrap, which S.C.R.A.P, so on and so forth. All of them combined together allow me to basically get rid of anything. So as you can see right now, the ground here is highlighted. Save your game before you go willy-nilly deleting all kinds of things, especially big chunks of ground like this, because you can actually remove sections of the map. In this location, we kind of we're safe here that there is some ground underneath it, but there are places where if you scrap it, you will get outside of the map boundaries, and you'll see like big giant white void, and especially if it's on the ground, you can actually walk right through it and just fall. A lot of the times the game will just respawn you somewhere, other times you can actually crash your game, so just be careful. If you've seen some of my videos where I am inside of buildings that you normally can't get into, that's what those scrapping mods help me do. I can actually walk right up to the building and just like this, remove a section of the wall and basically build an interior inside there. So that's one of the next biggest things, is just clearing. In this case, if I'm looking at this location, I might use something like kind of like this natural looking path to create my entrance. That is the next step in what I use for whenever I build a settlement, is to set my boundaries. You have tons and tons of different walls you can use. You have the junk walls, covenant walls, so on and so forth, all kinds of different stuff. I've even used vehicles to make walls before. So if I were to use this as my entrance, I would go ahead and stick my gate somewhere around here. We'll go ahead and grab our Place Anywhere tool, stick it somewhere near it, activate it. And then with that, I can glitch this into anything I want. And if you've used the junk walls before, you know that a lot of times they'll end up sitting up way too high, or they won't get close enough to one another. With the Place Anywhere tool, you can set your height to make things look exactly the way you want. We're going to go ahead and use USO for the rest of the junk wall here. I'm not going to build an entire wall because it's just going to take up an entire video right there. But we're going to use this for demonstration purposes. So for one, we got this tree in the way. Let's get rid of these twigs here. Now if you look, that's as close as I can get to it, and that's just not going to fly. So we're going to go ahead and stick that little section right there. Pick up our Place Anywhere tool. You can place it on a section like that if it does it. Otherwise, you just really need to get it as close to it as possible. Once you do that, now you can see we can go ahead and put these into each other. Now if you go ahead and look from the other side, it looks like one big giant piece. It actually looks like a wall versus just sections kind of near each other. Either way, your enemies cannot get through it to get to you, but it just doesn't look good. So that's the next step, is building walls, setting your boundaries and closing off inside the area that you want to build in. Alright, so the next step in building your settlement is finding some sort of unique feature, at least for me anyway. I try to find some sort of inspiration or some kind of quirky thing that I can use to build. And in this case here, we have the electrical tower. Now, just looking at this, I'm thinking to myself, okay, maybe I can actually build into this thing, kind of like this house has been done. If you hear that jingle and that little whine, that is my dog, Lord Barkington. He likes to say hello when I'm making videos. So anyway, yes, just like this house is already built into this tower, that is essentially what I would do, except I would continue on with going upwards with it. So for starters, we can go ahead and throw a couple of wooden floors up here. And eventually what I would end up doing with something like this is I would surround the entire tower and build right into it. You are going to hit some spots where you can't put a floor just like this right here. That's where the Place Anywhere tool will also come in handy. So we'll go ahead and grab that guy. Now this is something that you want to take your time with in order to line things up. Let's say I wanted to put this, oops, wrong button. Wanted to put this over here. You could do something like this and bring it all the way over and actually put it into the structure and start building that way. So in this case, I would just continue building up further and further, using some stairs to make my settlement just keep going up and possibly even go all the way to the top. Again, using something like the Commonwealth Geck, you can just keep building upwards as high as you want as well as outward. So that's basically what I do in order to get some of the unique features that I do is I try to find something kind of neat and gitchy like this, if you want to say, to try and do some sort of unique feature, something that really makes it stand out, so that you don't just end up with, what am I looking for? Basic, wood foundations and square houses and so on and so forth. I want to do something that actually kind of really is cool and makes it stand out. So my next tip for starting a settlement for you beginners, once you've picked your location and done some cleaning and kind of decided what you want your design to be, is finding resources. Finding resources can be kind of a very tedious thing in this game. You either have to have a lot of caps and buy a lot of shipments, or spend countless hours searching the waste to try and find enough material. That I always find to be kind of problematic, so I use another mod that gives me access to this guy here, the cheat room. And inside this cheat room we have access to countless amounts of supplies. So we're going to go ahead and skip right over and jump into the cheat room, and I'll show you what we got. Okay, so now we are inside the cheat room, which, as you can see, looks just like a vault, because that's essentially what it is. That's what the creator decided to go with. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at all the different things that are available to you in the cheat room. Each one of these doors gives you access to different categories. In here we have a whole bunch of power armor frames, as well as a few complete power armor suits. Others, you'll find different types of armor, different weapons, so on and so forth. And here we have a couple of cheat weapons. I'm not really going to go into all that kinds of stuff, but let's see, what do we have here? Yeah, all the different types of armor, different clothes that I've messed around with. Ignore those. Let's see, what do we have here? Shipments. So yes, you have all these different shipments that you can use. I never use those. I just go straight for the assets themselves. In that case, it's just easier for me, because I just open a thing and take all of them. I'm also using a mod that makes it so that I have infinite weight lifting abilities, whatever you want to call it, so that I don't get over encumbered. So I can literally pick up an entire 10,000 pounds worth of stuff, and none of it affects me whatsoever. So yeah, inside here, like I said, in the cheat room, you find access to all kinds of stuff, all the holotapes, keys, pretty much anything and everything that you would want, even consumables. And so here inside this room, you can see all of the different supply items that you would need in order to build. If you look, there's 6,000 of just about pretty much any type of material you would need to build your settlement. I am using a ring that gives me unlimited carry capacity. So if I go ahead and do take all, boom, I just took that whole entire thing, and as you can see, I am not over encumbered. I can still move around, not have any issues. Like I was saying, for me, finding all the supplies in order to make the giant settlements that I make can sometimes be problematic. Using something like this cheat room basically solves that problem, gives me access to all the different components and supplies that I need in order to build. Okay, so now that we've visited the cheat room and gotten hundreds and hundreds, thousands actually, of different items in order to build whatever we want, you'd be tempted to just come to your settlement and deposit them right here in your workbench. I highly advise that you do not do that. You can get away with it sometimes, but what that actually does is that puts all those thousands of different items and objects into the settlement's inventory. That can actually eventually cause lag, and even your settlement to become unstable and crash a lot. In my earlier videos, when I was visiting or building at Sanctuary, Sanctuary was always extremely unstable for me, and as it turns out, that was the reason why, is because I kept putting everything into the inventory. So what you do is pick a settlement that you don't care about, maybe one that you've already finished, or one that you absolutely hate. Visit that one and put everything into the inventory there. then take a settler and set him up to connect the settlements together so that you can share the assets back and forth. Doing that will give you access to everything that is here in your workbench without actually having to store it here, and thus your whole settlement will remain stable. Alright, so this next little tip for building has to do with the size limitations on each settlement. As I've mentioned, I use a mod called the Commonwealth Geck to make my settlements bigger, but when I'm referring to size, I mean how much stuff you can actually put into it. Bethesda has put limits allowing you to only build X and Y amount of buildings, whatever you end up putting in there, but you do have limitations. My tip is to get a mod that basically removes them. I use one that removes the build limit so that I can put as much stuff as I want in there. If you do not want to use a mod like that, here's a little tip for you. Scrounging around out in the waste, pick up a whole bunch of different types of junk and just bring it with you. Bring it to the settlement and then just drop it on the ground. Okay, and once you drop it on the ground, go ahead and enter your menu and then just start scrapping these items. As you scrap them, you will see that the size meter for your settlement will start to decrease. The more times you do it, the more stuff you remove, the more you can actually build. That's one way of getting around the size limitations if you decide you do not want to use any mods. So I had mentioned in my first tutorial video about building walls using things like this. This is a wood foundation with a texture pack which turns it into stone. And I use this a lot of times with doing my castle builds. I will just pick where I want my surrounding area to be, and I will start building the walls. It looks good, it serves the purpose. One problem you'll run into, as you can see here, is the ground. It keeps going up and up and up, which makes this shorter and shorter. So to fix that, all you need is a set of stairs. So we're going to go ahead and go into our wood section here. Now if you notice me constantly bouncing back and forth, that's because of USO. USO breaks up the structures into two different locations apparently, and some stuff is here, some stuff is there, so it's one of the things you got to deal with. So now that we have our set of stairs, let's go ahead and bring up our stone foundation again, and that's how we would put our second floor in order to keep building up. See, now we're on top of the other one, and we can go ahead and keep building forward. Now you're going to see too that the ground just keeps going up and up and up, and so we're just going to have to keep doing that, and you're going to end up with steps like this. If the ground is a little more level, then I would just go ahead and make a really tall wall in some sections, but usually what I'll end up doing is I will use stairs. And I'll make most of my walls so that they can be walked on by either my character or the NPCs, and I will put stairways like that so that it looks purposeful. Looks like I did that so that they can walk back and forth, but really it's just to make it so that the wall can be used without making a section like this, like, you know, 10 blocks high in order to meet one that's only like 2 blocks high over there. So this next little tip for the beginners, texture packs. Texture packs, texture packs. I love the texture packs because I get so bored with just the standard walls that you might see from wood, metal, whatever. Yes, these are pretty cool and they can come in handy. You can make some really cool looking stuff, but eventually everything just starts looking the same. So I love doing texture packs. So for example, here in Barn we have our normal red walls, etc. And if we go over here, we have retextures, and we have blue painted, green, there's white, and then there's unpainted as well. And it really does help to make things look a little bit different. And yes, they're going to look exactly the same because they're all the same color wood, but with changing the color, it does help break up the monotony. And you also get stuff like this, where you can make it out of red brick. And that right there alone makes building a little more tolerable. Like I said, I get kind of bored using the same ones over and over again, so I like having the texture pack so that I can make these things look different from each other. He jumped the wall. Nice. But yeah, texture packs, they're going to come in handy. You're going to love them as much as I do. You just get so much more possibilities of the different things that you can put in the game once you start adding these types of things into it. So yeah, get into modding if you're not already into modding, and definitely look into retextures. Okay, so this next one, you might have seen some of these assets used in my Silent Hill build. If you haven't seen that one, go ahead and check that one out. That was a labor of love. I put a lot of time into trying to recreate Silent Hill, the town of Silent Hill, the school, and so on and so forth. But anyway, I found this mod probably about a month or two before I started doing the Silent Hill mod build, and I'm so glad that I did. This one is called Grounded. It puts itself over in the concrete section, and it's basically a texture pack. I love texture packs because I get so bored with the regular vanilla textures that are in the game, and I like to be able to do stuff different. So with Grounded, it gives you access to all of the different types of ground textures. So if we go ahead and put this one here, you can see this is basically like some black dirt. Right next to that we can put some mud and cracked dried mud, kind of like you would see up over in here. You can see there's the cracked dried mud, and then there's the cracked dried mud. And there's access to all different types of stuff. Pre-war textures, so that you can build sidewalks. There is actually one here that I wanted to show. The grass, that's one of my favorites. When you get them together, it actually does look like a nice solid piece of green grass. I'm actually currently using that in the build that I'm doing in order to make a nice front yard for someplace. Caves, a whole bunch of, there you go, different textures, and again it just uses the concrete blocks. Good thing is most of them don't have that little weird bump in the middle, so that they actually do stay kind of natural looking. One of the awesome things about this one too is that you have access to sidewalk things, some curbs. I used these in my Trinity City build in order to kind of rebuild the section around the church that was missing some of these curbs. And you also have access to different rocks that you can place, boulders, big giant ones. I've used these in a lot of my builds, and you also have access to mounds. All these different types of mounds, some with just dirt and mud, and others will actually have grass on them, like these guys here. And then as you can see, it looks like a normal natural piece there. If we decide we want to take it and use it to try and cover up some edges, we can take our Place Anywhere tool, pick it up, and I would use that to try and get rid of some of those straight edges to make it look a little more natural. So if this was a little bit further down, we wouldn't have these straight edges. We'd have this grass kind of bleeding into it and make it look like it's pretty much always been there. When I've rebuilt roads and bridges, this is basically the one that I've been using. If we search right over here, roads and sidewalks, and we're a little frozen. There it goes. Sometimes that glitches too. You have some older sections of road. You have the different bricks, sidewalks. So you see this in all of downtown Boston. But this is the texture that I was using to rebuild the bridges and roads. Not all of them are solid blocks. You actually do get access to like the flat floor sections like you see here. That's what I was always using to do my bridges. So yeah, that one's called Grounded. I love that mod. I've been using it a lot lately. The textures are just perfect. The way that they all blend together. Definitely check that one out. Alright, so this next little tip for you beginners and possibly even you more advanced people, because this was a kind of new one to me within the last, I don't know, couple of months. Since I started putting out all these videos, I've been getting lots and lots of comments from everybody about tips and tricks of their own on how to help me out with some stuff. And one of the big ones that I need to mention is the wireless fuse box here. What this little guy does is this will power your entire settlement without the need of running wires and conduit and all that kinds of stuff. This has been coming in super handy. I've been saving so much time by putting these in place so that I don't have to wire everything individually. You can just put whatever the heck you want and boom, if it needs power, it gets power. There are some exceptions. Some things absolutely need a hardwired connection. So I use another mod for that one as well, but let's go ahead and showcase our wireless fuse box. We're going to put that in place, and you will see when you use it, sometimes your game will kind of freeze, but it will eventually come back to life. That freaked me out the first time I tried to use it, and I wasn't sure what the heck was going on. So we're going to go ahead and put this guy here and wire that into that. I'm not 100% sure if you have to do that to make the wireless thing work. Honestly, I've never really messed around with it. But now that we have that in place, if we go ahead and start putting up street lights, these guys normally need to be plugged into something. We can just go ahead and boom, there it is, it has light. Now, if you run into a case where you actually have to have something hardwired, the other one that I used to use in the past was so that I didn't have to have all those noisy generators going constantly, and that's this guy here. It's a powered fuse box. You have a 100 watt and a 100 power, 500 power, and it works the same as just any other fuse box. You just put it in place, and you have to then run your wired connections to whatever in order to make it work. But that one comes in handy so that you don't have all those noisy things kicking around that to me honestly get a little annoying. Even these, you know, that sound eventually starts to get on my nerves. But there you go, that's how to power without having to really run a crap ton of wires. So one of the mods that I've talked about numerous times with all my different settlements is the fully stocked shelves mod. I think that's what it's called. I will have a list of all the different mods in the description. Just sort through them and you'll see the one that talks about fully stocked shelves. That is such a fantastic mod. It saves so much time when it comes to decorating. Putting in all the buildings, sure, fine, but for me, like, the most agonized thing is always doing the decorations to try and make it look more realistic and more lived in. One of the side effects of having that mod is it does cause the menu to kind of freeze up a little bit. Again, that's just because it's loading the assets and it just takes a little while. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. If I go into shelves, right now I'm frozen. I can't move left or right. You can see all my icons are no longer spinning. It takes a few moments, so just be patient with it. Don't freak out and immediately think that your game has frozen. It just takes a few seconds. There you go. See, now it's starting to spin again, so now I can go ahead and access all these different shelves. As you can see, we have armor, we have drinks, there's toys, clothes, books, full fridges, so on and so forth. A little bit of everything. There's more stuff that you can activate as well using CVA, custom vanilla assets will actually give you access to some more stuff kind of similar to this that has all these different things on display. But yeah, there's a little bit of everything to try and do something. You've probably seen these like 100 times. I've talked about you can place them, but you cannot interact with any of the items on the shelves. But again, it does save a lot of time when it comes to decorating. We also have tables and displays for tables. See there, that one goes to now. A couple of these different types of tables with different items on them. This one's got, you know, the little checkerboard, so on. And we even have, let's see if we can find, gardening tables. That comes in handy. I'm actually going to be using a whole bunch of those in a settlement that I'm building right now. Again, chemistry looking type stuff, but you cannot interact with all the different items on there. This is one of my favorites to go to, is the ones that already have like dinner plates on them. And then you have these decorations here that you notice you can't put on a table. So that's where the Place Anywhere tool will come in handy. So we're going to go ahead and pretend this coffee table is an empty table. We're going to take our Place Anywhere tool, and you can pick it up, and then you can go ahead and put your assets, boom, right there. And now it actually looks like it's always been there. So now you can see there's my little bit of frame rate drop just by doing something like that. The game looks a little kind of glitchy. In this case, all I'd have to do is exit the menu, and now you can see that has gone away. Alright, so this next tip comes in handy when you're trying to get settlers to your settlement. Yes, you can set up the beacon, but that usually ends up taking quite a while. I like to take shortcuts, and so I use this one here. It's a spawn settler grenade. Works just the same as any frag grenade, except for no explosion. It will actually spawn settlers for you. And these are real settlers. Unfortunately, as I mentioned with the Workbench Anywhere, yes, you can spawn the settlers using this, but you can't really assign them to anything because it's not a real settlement. But for this place, I can. I can go ahead and throw it, and boom, you have a settler. You can interact with them just the same as you would any normal settler. You can assign them tasks, jobs, whatever. But it comes in handy so that instead of waiting for them, you can just spawn a whole bunch of them, get them to work in the garden and or at your shops. Okay, for this next one, we are going to be a little more advanced, and we are going to create steps using floors or foundations. I did this in another video of mine where I built a walkway going up a steep hill. Actually, I had a couple of them, and I'm going to show you exactly how I did it. It's not hard. You can use the concrete foundation blocks, you can use the wood foundation blocks, whatever you want. I happen to be using the textured ones from the mod Grounded, so let's go ahead and show you how we do this. So we're going to use the Place Anywhere tool, we're going to activate it, and we're going to blend these into each other to create steps. You can make them super long ones if you wanted to, with little subtle drops like that, or you can try to make them more like a normal set of stairs. That's basically what you do, is you got two going there, and we just keep this going. You can curve it if you need to. I did that with one of the ones that I had. I followed the natural curve of the ground and just kind of set it on an angle like that. And if you do it just right, it takes a little practice to get it, you can actually create yourself a nice little set of stairs. And they will be functional for you and for any characters that you or NPCs that you have walking around. Makes it really nice little aesthetically pleasing setup. And not as you've seen with playing around with all the different and as you've seen with putting together your settlements, anytime you're using stairs, they don't always fit the way you want them to, or they don't work the way you want them to. For example, if we go over to the wood section, let's go ahead and bring up a set of stairs real fast. You know, that isn't going to work. That's not going to look great. That, yeah, it can kind of work, but again, it's just not going to do anything like this. It's not going to give you this nice little subtle steps that you can basically send in any direction you want to. I've I found it to be super useful in doing stuff like this, so that when you have one of these let me get rid of these guys. When you have a steep hill like this, it comes in handy. Then you can do that. I mean, you could just leave it naturally, but it doesn't look as nice, as in my opinion. Alright, so this next step is a little more advanced. It's honestly not hard. It just takes quite a few steps to accomplish. Has to do with lighting. I like to put some of these big signs in place, and as you can see here at nighttime, you can't really see it. I mean, you can see it, but it's just not as visible as you'd want it to be. So what I've done in the past is I've taken some of these wall light bulbs and stuck them to the signs like that in order to light them up. It gets the job done, but honestly, it's still not that great looking. So I'm using a mod called CVA, Custom Vanilla Assets. And with that, I get access to a lot of the behind-the-scenes assets that you wouldn't normally see. Now, let me show you exactly what I'm talking about here. Excuse me. If we go over into the lights section, we have a few of these things here, and then we also have this toggle. Now you have to use the toggle here to activate your lights. If I put this down, you can see it's green because mine is already active. And then you have to also activate the main toggle, which would be found down in here. You have all these different ones that you can activate, so on and so forth. But you put your main one, and then you put the lighting one down, exit the workshop menu, click on each one to turn them on, and then get back into your workshop menu. Now what that does, if we go back into our lights, now you see this little guy here. This is an Omni light. This is what's used basically in the game's engines, or whatever you want to call it, to create lighting effects. You have a whole bunch of different types. You have spotlight one here that you can aim. Now as you can see, we can actually light up the sign here. But this is now red, so I can't exactly do anything with it until I put it on something. So, in order to set this up, we're going to go over to USO, and we're going to go into the integrated tools and the glitch tools. And then down here we have invisible rugs. Now if I go ahead and put that down, you can't see it unless you highlight it. So if you keep looking at it, go back over to your lights section, put your Omni light directly on top of it. Now we have the two of them stacked on top of each other. Now grab your Place Anywhere tool, and we're going to stick it right on top of the whole entire thing. We're going to activate it. Now if you click on that, you can actually bring the light up and you can aim it at the sign. Once you get some of your letters highlighted, go ahead and place your Place Anywhere tool, and now you can see it's actually glitched into the air. If we take our tool, set it down, now look, you have your sign all lit up, or at least part of lit up anyway, just by using these tools. If we go ahead and exit the menu, there's no collision, you don't hit any of it, and everything is nicely lit up. Okay, for this next one we're going to talk about the Workbench Anywhere mod. This is what I use to build in non-vanilla settlements. So we're going to go ahead and enable that. In order to get these, you actually have to create them. First you download the mod, go to a chemistry station, and then you can go ahead and make a bunch of them. So let's say we wanted to make a settlement up here. This works basically just the same as a frag grenade. So we're going to go ahead and throw it, and now we have our workbench. So as you can see, it looks just exactly the same, and we're going to go ahead and access it. Again, because I have a million different mods all on different types of settlement stuff, it takes a while for mine to load up. But we're going to go ahead and give it a second. There we go. So now, as you can see, we have a settlement. We can go ahead and start scrapping stuff. Again, as you can see, this whole thing is highlighted, so actually I could scrap this entire bridge if I wanted to. So as I mentioned in some of my other steps, if you are using some of the scrap mods that I use, just be careful with them, because there are things that you can get rid of that you might not want to. So if you're not sure what's going to happen, just save before you access the menu so that you don't accidentally get rid of something you don't want to. Size-wise, this creates settlements that are roughly about the general size of most other settlements. However, one thing you can do is you can actually pick this up and move it, and you can place it wherever you want. I use this little trick here to make my settlements much larger. One of the ones that I just did was at Lynn Woods, and in order to make it as big as I did, just picked this up and moved it around so that I could keep building in all the different directions that I wanted to. And so for that, yeah, if you wanted to build a settlement up here, just go ahead and create one of these guys and spawn it, and then you can go ahead and build whatever you want, wherever you want. If I wasn't happy with the location up there, now I have some coverage overhead, and we can go ahead and start building a settlement here. Now, to show you what will happen if I accidentally delete this, boom, there goes the entire bridge. Now you got all that stuff floating up in the air. So again, if you're going to be doing that kind of stuff, just be careful. Like I said, save before you do anything so that you don't accidentally destroy your entire settlement just by clicking one button. Now, one thing you got to be careful about when you're using certain mods is that it can kind of cause issues with the game. And I'm not talking about the normal issues that you might see. In this case, I'm talking about something like CVA, which is Custom Vanilla Assets. That mod will give you access to a lot of behind-the-scenes things like lights, lighting effects, so on and so forth, water, whole bunch of stuff. You have these little toggles that you activate, and each time you activate a toggle, it gives you access to a whole category of items that normally you wouldn't have access to. That is great. One of the downsides is it can cause delays in loading your menu. So I'm going to go ahead and push the button right now to activate the workshop. And we are still waiting for it to access. Basically, it is, in a sense, booting itself up. It is opening up the program, and it is also opening up the, like, I don't know, tens of hundreds of assets, there we go, that I have activated through CVA. You can see we have all these different types of categories. We have vendors, access to lighting, food, drink, garage tools, a whole bunch of stuff. And every time you activate one of these categories, it opens up a whole bunch of different assets for you to play around with. Just be careful though, like I said, when you do that, the more of these that you have active and keep active, the longer it's going to take for your menu to fire up. Alright, so this next tip is in continuing with dealing with glitches. To show you one of the ones that I've come across, and I've actually talked with somebody before about this type of thing happening. The biggest glitch that I see is eventually you'll get stuttering. If you start playing around with a whole bunch of really big items, sometimes if I put like an entire house down, like here in the pre-war buildings, I can put like an entire building like this in place. Sometimes when you put some of these larger assets down, your game will actually start to stutter and kind of freeze on you. This is not always the case, but sometimes it does happen. So right now I'm going to try and put a couple of these. We're going to try and see if we can make the game glitch. But what you'll see, which of course now it doesn't want to do it, is sometimes when you put some of these objects, like I said, your frame rate will drop, and you'll just be, every time you try to turn, everything's just going to move kind of like this, kind of juddery. So if that happens, the only thing you have to do is just exit the workshop menu. Once you exit the workshop menu, you'll see that everything will return back to normal. Your frame rates are all what they should be, and then just simply go right back into the workshop menu and you can continue working. Once you go back in, you won't see any more stuttering. If you do, it's usually after you start placing some of these big items again. Like I always have it happen once I've gotten about 90% of my settlement done and I put things like this in, like this boat for a decoration. I'll see that happen just about every time. And again, all you have to do is just exit the menu and then go right back into it and you're all set. Alright folks, there you go. That's going to do it for this tutorial video. I hope you guys found this to be helpful and useful. If there's anything you want to learn how to do, please feel free to leave it in the comments below, and next time I make another tutorial video I can go ahead and showcase some stuff like that. In the meantime, we're going to end this with a little fun. Inside the cheat room there are some of those special weapons that I had mentioned, and this happens to be one of them. This is a minigun that shoots missiles. We also have his little friend here, a minigun that shoots mini nukes. There's all kinds of good cheat weapons in there to have fun with. And I do suggest being really careful with this particular one because it can freeze your game. If you shoot out way too many of them, the screen will turn white from the explosions, and it's not pretty. It'll disappear on you. Let's see, what else do we have? We have, let's see, The cheat alien blaster will kill anything with one shot. The cheat Gauss rifle. This is a one-shot kill weapon as well. It's seriously overpowered. I think it does probably about, I don't know, 10,000 damage. So yeah, anybody you shoot, if shoot them, there you go, they die instantly. There's doesn't matter how tough the opponent is, but yeah, it'll take them out. We also have this guy here. Not as effective as the other one, but it gets the job done. I love the cheat room. There's just so much fun stuff in there. Let's see what this guy does here. Oh yeah, that one. So yeah, I hope you guys found this to be useful and helpful, and until next time, don't get irradiated.